Anxiety and depression. You've probably felt them, and a lot of the time, they show up together. It can get so tangled up that it's almost impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. So today, let's try to untangle that knot.
And that brings us to the big question, right? What is the real difference between them? And why on earth do they seem to go hand in hand so often? Let's get some clarity on this.
Just how common is this overlap? Well, get this. One study found that nearly 72% of people with depression also have to deal with anxiety. That's not a small overlap. For most people, it's the norm. And that is exactly why we need to get clear on what's what. Okay, let's start by untangling the feelings themselves. We're going to break down exactly how each one affects our thinking, where our focus goes, and the mental patterns they create. So, here's a really great way to start thinking about it. Anxiety, it tends to live in the future. It's all about that constant worry over what might happen. Depression, on the other hand, is usually rooted in the past or the present. It's more about fixating on what's already gone wrong or just how hopeless everything feels right now. And you know, that difference in focus creates two totally different mental habits. For anxiety, it's all about worry. It's that endless what-if loop about what's coming. For depression, it's often rumination. That's when you get stuck replaying past mistakes or negative feelings over and over. You just can't seem to move on. This leads to a really specific kind of mental bias for each one. With anxiety, you get what's called an attention bias. Your brain basically turns into this super sensitive threat detector, constantly scanning for everything that could possibly go wrong. Depression, though, creates a memory bias. It's like your brain puts your greatest hits of negative memories on shuffle and just leaves it on repeat. And of course, these different thought patterns lead to very different physical and emotional symptoms. With anxiety, you get those physical signs of fear, muscle tension, that restless feeling. But with depression, it's more about a deep, profound loss of interest in life, which comes along with these heavy feelings of worthlessness or guilt.
Okay, so if they're so different, why do they feel so connected? Let's dig into the shared roots, because that's what really explains why they overlap so often.
It turns out both conditions can kind of grow from the same soil. Things like our genetics, our brain chemistry, major life stress or trauma, these can be the underlying causes for either one. So with these shared foundations, it's really no wonder they often show up together.
This overlap is so incredibly common that it actually has a clinical name: anxious distress. It's a term doctors use when someone with depression also has these really high levels of anxiety, that feeling of being tense, restless, or terrified of losing control. It's the medical world's way of saying, yeah, we see it, these two are deeply intertwined.
So understanding the what and the why is a huge first step. But honestly, the most important part is knowing that there is a path forward. So let's talk about the solutions and treatments that can actually genuinely help.
The path to feeling better usually involves a combination of three key areas. You've got therapy to work on those thought patterns, medication to help regulate brain chemistry, and then supportive lifestyle changes to build a really strong foundation for your mental health.
Now, when it comes to therapy, one of the most effective types is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Remember those patterns of worry and rumination we just talked about? Well, CBT is so powerful because it gives you the actual tools to directly challenge and change those thought cycles. Medication can also be an absolutely vital tool. Certain antidepressants, like SSRIs and SNRIs, are known to be effective for both conditions. Now, one really important thing to know is that some anti-anxiety meds are only for short-term use because they can become habit-forming. The goal is always to work with a doctor to find a safe, sustainable, long-term solution.
And finally, never underestimate the power of your daily habits. Getting enough sleep, moving your body, eating well, these aren't just good for you physically. They directly support your brain's health. And cutting back on things that can pour fuel on the anxiety fire, like caffeine and alcohol, can also help create a much calmer baseline.
Okay, knowing all this is one thing, but it all comes down to taking that first step, right? So when is it time to get help, and how do you even do it? Because that can feel like the biggest hurdle of all.
This is the question, isn't it? The one people ask themselves for weeks or months, sometimes even years. How do you know when things are bad enough to actually reach out and ask for help?
And the answer is so much simpler than you might think. The time to seek help is any time it starts getting in the way of your life, your work, your relationships, your ability to just find joy. You don't have to hit some kind of rock bottom.
If it's affecting you, that is more than enough reason to get support.
So let's just leave it with this really powerful idea. Anxiety and depression do not have to be your normal state of being. Help is out there. Understanding the difference is empowering, for sure, but knowing you don't have to go through it alone, well, that can be life-changing.